gentlemen, people who are listening to this live, people who are, listening to it after on the recording. Of course, it's me, it's Pat, Brian, and Justin again for the Paradise Collective. This
Yerp.
is,
Good
this is,
afternoon, good evening, good night.
hey everybody, this is episode three. Of course, we kind of talked about. We're going to be talking about OBEs, sleep paralysis, astral projection. So that's going to be pretty cool tonight, guys. Kind of want to give you guys kind of a little bit of an intro on that. Basically, just basic stuff. So, astral projection, it's a term used in esotericism to describe an intentional
I
out of
hear
body
you
experience.
twice.
I don't know why. I don't know what to tell you, dude. Like you must be doing something. It's not me.
Somebody needs to mute their YouTube.
It's not me, I don't have it open. Gotta be
My
you.
YouTube's muted. Mine's muted, dude. I'm literally looking at it.
It's on your end, Justin, because I don't hear him twice.
Oh. All right.
Yeah, I don't hear myself twice on the thing. Anyways, so astral projection, it's a term used in esotericism to describe an intentional out of body experience. So we're going to be talking about OBEs in general, but astral projection is one of those. The big difference is that it's intentional, which means that basically it's something that you're trying to do. We're going to be speaking to a couple different gentlemen tonight. One of them is a laboratory researcher for a prominent university science organization that we're going to be talking to. We're not really be talking about obviously where he works, of course. We're going to talking to him. He has a clinical kind of a really good way of looking at this from a scientific perspective. And we're also going to talk to another gentleman who's had some really interesting experiences throughout his life concerning astral projection.
Appreciate.
So now, an out of body experience, of course, that's a phenomenon in which a person perceives the world from a location outside of their physical body.
Mm.
Um, and OBE is a form of autoscopy or otoscopy. Literally, basically means seeing yourself. Terms more commonly used to refer to a pathological condition of seeing your second self or a doppelganger. So
It's awesome.
so this is either the term itself. What we're talking about with an OBE is not. We're not talking about looking at your doppelganger. We're talking more about NDEs, near death experiences, where you see yourself. Also, astral projections, where you're able to see your body, sleep paralysis, stuff like that.
Now
We're going
there's
to
a
be getting into
difference
that. Anyways,
between there's a difference between astral projection and lucid dream, correct?
yes, yes, of course. So, because as let me just continue with the intro here.
Yep.
Um, so that kind of segues us into sleep paralysis, which is something we're going to talk about too. It's a state during waking or falling asleep in which a person is aware but unable to move or speak. During an episode, one may hallucinate, one may hear, feel, or see things that are not there, which often results in fear. And episodes generally last less than a couple of minutes. Now, these are all basically what I've gone over and initially here. That's all stuff uh, from Wikipedia to kind of define these types of things as far as what they are and what the differences between those different things are. So now we have I've got Cosmic here. We're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna introduce Cosmic to everybody. We're gonna be sitting here and speaking with him for a little while about his experiences, and then we're gonna be bringing in later in the night another guest. Like I said, the laboratory scientist researcher. Um, Cosmic, are you there?
Hello, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing, Cosmic?
Yeah, no,
Um, Thanks for joining us. I know it's a little bit late. I know we had a mix up on the time, so appreciate you hanging out with us tonight for at least for a little while and kind of talking with us.
yeah, no problem. Like I'm a little bit tired, but
I hear
it's
you.
I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah,
Of
we really
course.
appreciate you, taking the time to come out with us. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Cosmic. A little bit about just a little bit of general background about you, and then maybe segue into your early experiences. And we'll kind of go from there with
Cool. So I'm 29 years old, a graphic designer, and I'm from Scotland. Um, and my initial experience with like OBEs and stuff, I was and kind of like astral projection and stuff was when I was like receiving treatment for like a chemical imbalance in my brain and stuff. So I started having all these kind of like strange, sporadic, almost like involuntary outer body experiences. Like I'd like go for a nap on the couch or whatever, and all of a sudden I was like whisked away to this kind of like bizarre and almost like sometimes it's almost like an alternate reality, something that was just like completely alien to me, and I had no way of even like vocalizing it. So it's took me like a couple of years to kind of be able to get the vocabulary to be able to describe to people like what I've experienced, and like I've got kind of more of a handle on it now, and I've actually kind of started inducing it myself through like things like meditation and things like that. So I definitely think there's like a kind of correlation between like the brain chemicals that are released during like meditation and things like that. And I think these things were just kind of coming on through, this kind of chemical imbalance that I had in my brain.
Now, do you think that your experiences have more to do with the medicine that was involved in kind of righting your ship in troubled waters, or do you think it was the actual the imbalance itself that kind of kickstarted the your experiences?
I think, to be honest, like I'd always had kind of like earlier on in my life, I'd had like kind of like lucid, like lots of kind of like lucid dream kind of experiences, and
Okay, and when did that start? When did your lucid dreams start at the younger age, Cosmic?
oh, like ever since I was like a kid, really, I'd had like these kind of like sleep paralysis and things like that, and I'd often go into these like extremely vivid kind of realistic dreams.
Like young, like younger than 10 or older than 10?
Yeah, like probably younger than 10. Like I can
Wow.
remember like one instance when it was definitely before I went to high school, and I kind of got frozen in that kind of sleeper paralysis state for the first time, and it was absolutely terrifying. And I seen this kind of like creepy little kind of entity at the end of my bed. Kind
What did
of
it look like? You actually saw something manifest?
Yeah. To be fun, it was quite a
Do
funny
you
story.
remember it all? Yeah, tell us the story. We're really interested.
Yeah, so I was like kind of frozen, and like anyone that's experienced it, they feel that kind of utter terror of not being able to move their body, and they can't get a breath in, they can't speak, and there was this kind of like, it was almost like a little boy at the kind of end of my bed, and he kept kind of like peering up over my kind of chest of drawers at the time, and was kind of like peeking and like looking at me and kind of like scuttling around behind it. And it had kind of like just like kind of really pale white skin, like it was like almost like porcelain like skin. Um, and when I eventually like managed to like pull myself from it, and like I like lurched out of bed, like I was like terrified.
Uh-huh.
And I actually thought it was my brother that was like kind of like playing a prank on me or whatever, and just trying to scare me or whatever.
Right.
So like I kind of like went through and like kicked his door open and started kind of like screaming at him.
So when
And
you jumped out of your bed, you didn't see the entity anymore?
like, so I think in a sense it's like almost like the conscious mind and the kind of unconscious mind kind of blending together to create this kind of like layered reality almost. Um,
So you don't think there was anything actually ever there. You don't think there was actually was an entity that manifested in our reality, like in your room. You think it was more like your dreaming mind was hallucinating a thing.
Well, in a sense, I think it's almost like you're kind of bridging the gap between like two states of consciousness.
Uh,
So like, there's like the conscious reality and the kind of unconscious reality, which I think a lot of people kind of take for granted and don't really give it that kind of time
I
of
agree.
day, almost, which
Right.
I think that's almost like just as relevant as this reality.
So now, have you ever seen that entity again in a different
um,
situation, in a different sleep paralysis situation at all, or?
Not that one, what I could say, but I have definitely seen different. Especially when I was going through that period of that kind of chemical imbalance, which was like a few years ago. I did see like a lot of different kind of entities and almost like spectral like kind of entities.
No. Now, were these sightings were they also associated with sleep paralysis or lucid dreaming, or were these things you were seeing? Was this something else?
So it was almost like yeah, so like that kind of it wasn't during the sleeping state. Like in the so I, the straight this is the strange thing. So like these kind of entities that I started kind of like manifesting themselves.
Mm.
I started seeing them in these kind of out of body experiences and was able to interact with them and talk to them in cases and um, stuff like that. So
This is while you were what? Now, just to clarify, 'cause I'm still not sure. Were this while you were awake, or these were like lucid dreams at this point? Is what you're talking
um,
about?
so yeah, so I had when I was awake, I had kind of like almost like they were almost like kind of I would say like hallucinations that were almost like kind of I think I'd felt like I had almost I don't know how I managed to do it, but I'd somehow like kind of managed to kind of bridge this gap. And these were, I don't know if they were like manifestations of my mind or if these were characters that were, in this kind of collective unconscious or
So
whatever.
this would happen while you were just awake, just walking and talking, or like in your house, or
Um,
take us through one of these typical experiences where you're actually able to interact with these unknown entities.
so at the time, I'd moved into this like kind of hellish flat. It wasn't great,
Hmm.
and I remember like the kind of first time one of these, it was like around about the time I'd had all these kind of OBEs and stuff, and I didn't really know what to make of them. And like I tried speaking to people at the time, but obviously they're the first people to kind of tarry with that brush that it's, like what you're experiencing is nonsense and all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
I've just kept it
exactly.
to myself. And um, one night, it was almost kind of like a ripple in the air. Like it was almost like something kind of manifested and it was this kind of like woman, and she disappeared again and then it kind of vanished for a while, and I was kind of like, what the fuck was that? Kind of freaking me out. Um,
It was a woman that you saw? Was she like wearing a dress, or like what did she look like? Describe
she
it.
had like kind of like long hair. Like what I was seeing was kind of like almost like an outline. It was kind
Like a
of like
silhouette.
ethereal looking. A silhouette almost, yeah, with like the features were defined though. You could see like the pupils of the eye, the kind of
Could you tell it
uh,
wasn't solid, more like, or?
yeah, you could 100%. It wasn't
Okay.
solid. It was very distinctly not solid. It was see
And this was
through.
in your house, in your
Yeah,
flat. Now,
yeah.
so did all these things, like these the things you're talking about, did they all happen like in the flat, like mostly, like what this situation now
Um,
with the lady, or is there a possibility that maybe there were just some entities in the flat, or?
well, like actually, well, that's like a whole. I don't know.
Huh.
But generally these kind of entities kind of like almost kind of seem to kind of follow me about, and they almost seem to be kind of trying to convey certain things to me.
Really?
Um, but these in almost like an enacted manner, as if to try and act out some kind of scene in order to
They were
convey
trying to
a message
get
to
your
me.
attention.
Yeah,
Really?
which was really quite bizarre. And I've like wrote a lot of it down, and I've kept journals over the years and stuff that I'd been experiencing this kind of stuff. And that's actually when I got into like people like kind of Carl Jung and stuff, and he had similar experiences. So that gave me a lot of solace that I wasn't, it made me feel a lot more kind of normal in that sense, like that I wasn't
Make
just
you
like,
feel like you weren't alone, like you're not just crazy and hearing things and seeing things, like it's not just you.
yeah. And like meeting kind of like-minded people like yourself and stuff has helped a lot.
And just to
But
stop you right there, I want to say, and this is more for our audience than anything else. That this attitude and this sentiment is extremely important to us, especially here at the Paradox Collective. That people go through experiences and they may not have anybody to turn to, and they may think they're alone and they don't want to talk to anybody, or people brush them off. And it's important for everybody to know, like if you go through something, try to find somebody to talk to who's going to listen. Like, we'll listen. I'm sure you can reach out to us on socials. I don't know. I don't think we have Twitter or anything like that, but I mean, we'd love to hear your stories about these.
We will.
And we want you guys to feel comfortable as well. To know that regardless of whatever happened to you, we want to listen. We want to walk through your experience. We want to talk to you guys. And just really just kind of understand it from your perspective. We're not here to judge anybody for whatever happened to them. We want to understand, and we want to make it easier for other people who may or may not have gone through similar situations. Obviously, those who may have, to really feel comfortable and know that, yeah, there's people out here who you can talk to. Anyways, so let me ask you a question, Cosmic. Any of these entities that you had interactions with, like throughout the day when you were awake, did you ever see any of these entities like in your dream state, in any of your lucid dreams? Were they any did
percent,
reality bleed back and forth, or
100%. So like these
Wow.
kind of,
really?
yeah, these same kind of characters would manifest themselves in my kind of dreams, and kind of in my kind of these kind of astral states.
Right.
And actually, one of them, there was like two distinct characters that I interacted with kind of on a personal level, and one of them was like this kind of female, and the other one was like this kind of masculine, kind of almost like kind of really aggressive and quite terrifying kind of character, who kind of at one point actually like kind of like almost like held me and prevented me from going back into my body.
Really?
So
So
it's like,
you mentioned earlier, you mentioned the woman that you had originally seen. Is this the same woman that you saw? You just mentioned the
yeah,
masculine guy and then a woman. It was the same woman.
yeah. So this same woman, she kind of, she was more kind of caring and kind of nurturing, and was like quite supportive, and kind of tried to help me a lot with certain things, which
Things like
was
what? Like
uh,
what was she helpful in?
so like it was kind of weird. It was like when these things, they couldn't like directly speak to me or anything for some reason, and I don't know why. They were kind of like there, and I could see them, and they would move around and interact with things in my room, but like not actively moving anything, but like maybe pointing to objects in my room and like things like that.
Huh.
But in my dreams and things, they could convey things more kind of clearly. And
In
these,
the timeline of these events, how old are you at this point?
so
A
this
couple
was like
years
a couple
ago.
of years ago. So this was like 2018. So like I would have been like 27, 26, 27,
Okay.
27, like that. But in regards to like, so like at that time, I was having a lot of these kind of OBEs and outer body experiences.
Now, when you
Outer
refer
body
to
experiences.
the OBEs, the frequent OBEs, are you referring to these experiences when you were seeing entities, when you were awake? And my next question is, when you were awake, were you like, are you in a state of resting where I mean, are you walking around, moving your head, seeing these things, or is it more like you're almost in a fugue state when you're awake seeing these?
So these, I could see these characters when, so like after I had like my kind of first kind of OBEs and kind of things like that, they kind of started to kind of be there all the time. So they were kind of like whilst I was awake, and it took me a long time to kind of even get to a state where I kind of accepted that they were there, and that I was comfortable around them, because it prevented me from sleeping and stuff like that, because I was terrified generally, because I'd never came across anyone that had encountered anything like this
Right.
before. Like no one that I knew anyway. And that's when that's where things like Reddit and stuff has been like incredibly helpful and supportive, and finding that kind of support network and things like that. And that's obviously like where I met you guys as well. Yeah, so like there were kind of like these kind of almost like ethereal entities that when I was going into these kind of lucid dream states, they would also be there. So that's why I think they're almost kind of, I don't know entirely, I'm not entirely sure what to make of it, but I think they're kind of like almost like entities that exist within this kind of collective unconscious that we all share. So like that's kind of
Right.
along the lines of like these kind of archetypes and
So did
things
you
like
ever? So have you ever? So you're more of the line that these things, you think the things that you were seeing more exist. Now, when let me rephrase the question. When you say these entities exist in the greater unconsciousness, are you referring, you think, to like a dream state as a collective, as in these are actual real entities, or do you think they only existed maybe in your mind and you were seeing them interact? Because, like I said, you kind of
that?
mentioned that the lady was helping you, and then at the same time, it seemed like the more aggressive male character may have been hindering you.
That's what I always
Yeah.
wonder. Also, like, I've heard a lot of people talk about like astral projection and like out of body experiences. I'm always like torn. I believe that what people are saying is true, and what happens to them, that they are really good. And I don't discredit that, but I always like have this thought. It's like, is this really happening, or are they in what their brain is projecting, what their unconscious believes to be this type of state? You know?
Well, is it?
Well,
Is it? Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Cosmic. I have something to say about this too, but I want to hear your response to that as far as whether you think they're
Well,
real or they're.
I'll let you go first, because I was going to talk about an actual AP experience that I kind of
So
uh, yeah.
it's an interesting question that you say that, Brian. It's a good thing to open a little bit of a discourse here, because you know, over time and throughout a little bit of research, and if you just going through some of the stories you'll find online, there's there there's a couple different schools of thought, but there's a lot of people that actually believe that you can communicate with entities during OBEs.
Or
That they
with the
can be
dead. I've heard that too. With
that, but
past
with
relatives.
OBEs, like with kind of like entities similar to what Cosmic is describing, that you can communicate with these entities, that you can take one as a spirit guide,
Right.
things like that, where they can help you while you're out of your body and things like that. And then the other side of the coin is, I've heard that people who do these journeys, who take these spiritual or soul journeys on a regular basis, have to be careful, because I've heard that there's the possibility that when you're outside of your body, something else can get in it, or
Mm.
things can follow you back, or even I've heard that you can. Some people have described the thread, like when they're out of their body, they can see a thread that
Okay.
touches
Yeah,
them in their
I've
body.
Yeah.
read
And
that
I've heard
too.
that if that thread gets cut, you can, something can happen to you. I don't know what the hell happens to you, but I mean, you go crazy or something. You leave your body, and then it's just like I don't know, catatonic. But I mean, so it's interesting. There's, like I said, the different schools of thought, and a lot of people think, like Cosmic said, that it's a possibility that it's just either a collective unconscious that has a pseudo existence, or that these are really that these are really places, that people travel, and there's really entities and beings, and that outside of our body, because we're not constrained and we're just our mind, we had the ability to travel through time and space and go to these different dimensions as
So
what they may be, you know?
So as far as like out of body experiences, I've only had one, and I attribute it 100% to psilocybin mushrooms. I took some mushrooms, and towards the beginning of my trip, I saw myself laying on the bed that I was sitting on, and it literally was a quick moment in time, and then it was gone. But as far as like you were talking about, Pat, as like needing a guide for this, so because of the industry that I work in, I know a lot about ibogaine and ayahuasca. And people will go to people will go to like Mexico and these third world countries where it's
Yeah, I've
open,
heard of
it's
it.
and it's readily available,
We
and
I think
you'll
we talked
what
about this, I think, on the first week or the second week with one of our other with the as a matter of fact, we talked about this with Mr. Divinity Original Sin, the guy, about ayahuasca retreats. They have those in the United States too. What I was talking about with the spiritual guides is that some people regularly go on out of body experiences and they regularly
meet up with a
interact
guide.
with these they regularly interact with these
Oh, okay,
entities
I got
and
what you're
take an
saying.
actual entity as a guide. But what you're saying is a good point too, is that there's ways to one of the things I kind of touched on initially about the out of body experiences is that astral projection is typified, is used as a term to describe an intentional out of body experience, which is,
Right.
Yeah.
if you're talking about ayahuasca, peyote, mushrooms,
Induced.
DMT, you know,
Yeah.
those types of things would definitely I would definitely be considered, astral projection or whatever. I had experience, I had an OBE, one of those really eclectic, frenetic OBEs on what's that shit you're not supposed to smoke from back in the day, dude? Salvia.
Angel dust.
No, salvia. Justin knows
Yeah,
what I'm talking
salvia.
about.
Yeah,
Freaking
yeah.
salvia.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
that,
dude. I thought I was a box. I thought
I
I was
had
cardboard.
Yep, I had a experience where I hit the salvia, dude, and I'm like, all right, it was the first time ever hitting. I'm like, whatever, it's like weed. I'll just rip it,
Mhm.
because I'm a young idiot, and I
And you
ripped
made it
that,
again.
and then I
Don't do that again.
sucked it in. I sucked it. I sucked that. I think I only did that shit twice in my life, and I had plenty of experience, plenty of chances. I'm like, no, I'm good. But I sucked it in, and as I inhaled it, like I felt myself inhale it, and then like do like a circle. I don't know how to describe it, but then I was looking at myself for a minute, and then like I exploded and turned into a fence. It was terrible. It was
It's
terrible,
hard.
dude.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Let me
Sounds
tell
like
you
a
something.
horrible
Salvia, I thought it
experience.
was gonna be fun,
Uh,
dude. The problem with salvia for me was that it was uncontrollable. You didn't know what was
yeah.
gonna happen. It came on immediately, and
Uh-huh.
the biggest, the scariest thing about salvia was that it was impossible to tell reality from the trip. I think that's the scariest part. Like normally with shrooms, you're like, oh yeah, I'm tripping. Yeah, this shit's crazy, whatever.
Right,
But
but
with
you're in
salvia,
your
it's like,
mind, yeah.
no,
Yeah.
salvia, no, bitch, I'm a fence. Like you said, you're a box. No, you're a box. It's the most weirdest thing to describe. It's you can't distinguish. It's not the same as like tripping on acid or something. Oh yeah, well these colors look crazy. I know I'm tripping. It's like you hit the. Anyways, but yeah, that was
I mean,
that.
it's the same thing with most pharmaceutical drugs, or not even
Yeah,
pharmaceutical drugs, because I mean, technically, you can consider it a pharmaceutical drug because it's made somewhere, and all the stuff that they're putting
with
into it.
salvia,
Yeah, that
yeah, I
shit's
don't even
made
know,
somewhere.
dude. It's
Yeah, the chemicals that they spray on that shit, it's the same thing as K2 nowadays.
Salvia and
Cosmic.
K2 are not the same thing, dude.
Cosmic.
Salvia
Would you
I never
say
did
that
the
power
I don't know.
hallucinogen. Go
Cosmic, would
ahead.
you say that whether like hallucinogens or DMT or anything would help or hinder someone's connectiveness to
Would you even know anything
the
about that, I
unconscious
guess?
state?
Well, to be honest, round about that time, I kind of like went looking for answers and stuff, and I've tried a lot of kind of hallucinogenic drugs and stuff in the past. But this was my last kind of venture into kind of any kind of drugs, and I've not really taken anything since. And I took DMT,
Oh.
and it was a very strange experience. It was kind of like, I think that's a totally different ballgame to like astral projection and OBEs. I think that's like
I
a
don't
ki-
mean to cut you off, but I just want to let everybody at home know that DMT is the chemical that your body releases with the moment you're born and the moment that you die. All right.
Otherwise known as the spiritual,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
which
like
we will have a show about DMT in the
Yeah.
future.
think
I promise
think,
you.
DMT, like I kind of see our bodies and our minds and stuff as like almost like a regulator of pure consciousness, and it's almost like training wheels for consciousness, and you grow and you grow and you grow. Whereas when you take DMT, it kind of like takes off the reins and you experience
It's like putting your brain on a
consciousness.
fucking motorcycle.
Yeah, it's like undiluted, pure, unadulterated consciousness, and you are not able to comprehend it. But I felt like I was experiencing almost like I was looking at something that was realer than what I am, if that makes any sense. That's to explain it in a very broad and simple way. It's like looking at so like imagine like your PlayStation 1 graphics and you're looking at like Xbox One graphics. Like that's the
Really
kind of
real.
so
Yeah.
it's like you like
And what was the dosage that you took of the DMT? Was it like outside of the norm, or
no, it's the kind of I can't remember, to be
because
honest.
I know people microdose that shit, like
Yeah.
literally all day long. Yeah.
Jesus
That's
Christ.
insane.
I don't
Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
it's
Anyways, so
Anyway,
I don't want to
sorry,
get too. No, you're good. You're good, Cosmic. I don't want to get too deep into that aspect of the OBEs and the stuff. Yeah, because that's a totally different animal. Shit, we might have you back when we talk about that. But what I want to kind of focus on a little bit more with you is just kind of talking about your interactions with these entities and how those interactions with these entities how that translated between like your dream state and then your waking state and did any of these entities, the ones or the good ones or the bad ones, the aggressive ones or not, did they ever actually have an effect on your life? Did they ever point at something and oh my gosh, point at that and then your shoe was untied and they saved your life, or something as trivial as that, or something even more of where they made a callback to or something was uh, something was buried in the ground, or you know what I mean? Was like did any of these things ever actually have a marked effect on your life?
Yeah, so like I feel like they were kind of like almost like personifications of like certain aspects of my mind or my consciousness or whatever. And I started to kind of experience a kind of almost like a state of kind of raised consciousness, which was so like when I was out and about, like almost like certain things were kind of my eyes would be drawn to or kind of like highlighted, and I started kind of experiencing more kind of what you would call kind of synchronicities, like being in the right place at the right time, or
Right.
Numbers and stuff,
what's that?
like numbers and stuff too, or
No, he was
Yeah,
saying about being like in the right place at the right time,
no, I know, but synchronicity
yeah,
is often very
associated with
associated
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, like 33 is a big one. That's why it's in my name as well. Like I think, and when you actually look into the significance of like when I started writing these down and stuff and looked into the significance of them, there was like lots of kind of meaning you could derive from them, like kind of spiritual meaning or whatever. So it is interesting in that sense. Like there is definitely something there. Like I think that I'll tell you about. So basically, I tried to induce an like a astral projection for the first time like quite recently, and I was actually successful.
Okay.
And it
What
took
were your
like
methods? What did you do? Walk us
um,
walk us through that process.
so I basically I read that kind of I think you'll probably hear like quite a lot of people talking about like that kind of what's his name, Robert Monroe Institute and all that kind of stuff. I read the kind of um, military report that the guy done about trying to induce astral projection and stuff like that.
The gateway
Gateway
process.
experience.
Yeah,
Gateway
yeah. So
experience. Yeah.
I read that, and it kind of married up with a lot of things that I'd been reading before about kind of like kind of altered states of consciousness and things like that. And I was like, all right, okay, I'll give this a go. So like I kind of almost done like a gym routine with it and like practiced every night and tried like different methods. So I tried all these different ones, like trying to imagine the rope coming out and climbing up the rope, and all that kind of stuff. And I'd done kind of hypnosis kind of tapes and tried to like induce it that way.
Right.
Funnily enough, it actually happened when I wasn't doing any of those things.
Right.
So like I'd done that for like a week, and I was getting a bit frustrated because it wasn't working, and eventually I kind of woke up early one morning. I went to the toilet, came back to bed, and I kind of induced it that way. I just like
Yeah, just to break you there, they've actually said that that's actually I've read that that's actually a good way to induce it. That's worked for me with lucid dreams as well as also even the sleep paralysis is to where if you come out of REM sleep because you have to pee or something, then when you come back and you lay in bed, your body's gonna revert back to that sleep state faster than there's a chance that your body can revert back to that sleep state faster than like your mind would, which is obviously that's the ideal state where you want to be for that lucid dreaming and for also for the to pass into that state of lucid dreaming to where your mind is still aware enough, when you move into REM sleep that you're actually able to, function.
yeah, like
Anyways, go
I-
ahead.
I've heard, yeah, sorry, I've heard quite a lot of different things. Like I've heard another one where it's like you lie, and when you wake up, you keep your eyes closed, and then try and trick your body into almost like believing it's asleep again, but
Right.
you're still aware. But so you feel like this kind of like almost like a tugging, and it's almost like you feel like you're coming out of your body, and it's really quite bizarre. And my impression of like astral projection was that it was, I thought it was like you come out your body and you're literally floating around reality, and you're able to interact with it, like you're like essentially like a ghost in reality, right?
Yeah.
Right,
That's
right.
that was my impression of it. But after kind of I decided to almost like study it afterwards, so like I wrote it all down, and basically when I came out of my body, I was in my room, and I could like almost like go through walls, and I could do all this kind of stuff. But as soon as I became like intensely aware that I was doing these things, I couldn't do it anymore. So I couldn't pass through the wall when I became like hyper aware of the holy shit, I'm going through a wall. It was like almost like
Yeah.
preventing me from doing it
Yeah.
until I kind of relaxed, and then I was able to like pass through it. So I don't know if that's something to do with
Amazing.
like resisting it almost or whatever. But when
Oh,
sorry,
it's interesting you say that too. Well, let me ask you a question. Like when you were actually out of your body and you were in the process of going through the walls or kind of exploring your environment, did you notice a tether?
I didn't. That was one thing that, to be honest, I don't think I really looked back at my body. I was so kind of panicked and like, holy shit, this is crazy, like type thing. Like I'm actually like
Right.
before, like a lot of them had just been kind of an experience that was happening because I was just like so bewildered by it. By this time, I actually had like full control over what was happening and where I could go, and like so I managed to kind of like fly out of my house, and I was like, doing what anyone would naturally do, which is like just
I mean, yeah, I would
flying out and
fly. I would fly and look around and stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So I done that, and it seems like to me, it seems like I went beyond where I knew. So like I was like up above, and I was looking down on things, and as soon as I started kind of entering a space where I wasn't really aware of where I was, it was almost like my brain started to kind of fill in the gaps. So
Explain that.
so I think it's almost like you've got like like a map of like what you know in your head,
Right.
and as soon as you move without like out with that area, it's like your brain like it's got nothing to go off. So it's almost like to me it feels like it's not a case of you're actually just kind of like leaving your body, but you're almost experiencing what's in your mind.
So let me ask you. So when you kind of got out of your, because I kind of know what you're saying. Like you're saying basically like you left your body and you were flying, and then once you were out of your area, like your little area of your streets or whatever that you kind of frequent, the area that you know, it was like it seemed like your brain was kind of filling in the blanks, like you kind of said. Now let me ask you: do you mean that in the sense that um So, if you could go back to wherever you were flying out when everything was quote unquote filled in, do you think that what you were seeing in the roads and the area that you're seeing would be correct in topographically, like in reality? Is it one of those things where like your brain actually stores all the information, you've seen it, but you obviously in your subconscious it's stored there, so your brain was filling it out that way?
Yeah.
Or do you think it was, or do you think your mind was actually out there over that area? Do you let me ask you, do you think your mind
I'd like
was
to get multiple perspectives on that question.
yeah. So like was it your brain? Do you think your brain, do you think it was your spirit outside over those areas, or do you think it was your mind taking a journey based on its subconscious knowing where it was going? If that makes
be
any
honest,
sense. That was a crazy question, but
From my experience, I don't know about other people, but like I don't feel like it's what I expected. I didn't think I was actually. I was definitely astral projection. I was coming out my body, and I was like experiencing like what I perceived. Like it looked exactly like what it looked like in reality. But
was it, did it feel off?
no, it didn't. It felt the same, but I think it was just my mind's representation of it. So like I think to an extent you're almost like projecting yourself into the deepest recesses of your mind. It's like
Have you ever met another person that was able to communicate with you and admit that they were also familiar with the astral projection realm while you were in astral projection?
no, but I've had like conversation and with multiple entities and stuff.
So just
Like
entities, no, like other people that
well,
this-
they look like people, and they talk to me as if they knew me.
So you've never
and
seen anybody you've recognized?
No, I've not. I've never like. I've heard people that like. I've seen people on like Reddit and stuff that saying that they came across like an ex-girlfriend or like things like that.
There's this
Okay,
guy who I
interesting.
was
When you're doing astral projection, have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror?
No, but funnily enough, I did have.
I don't think you're supposed to, because then you turn into a pumpkin, right?
I did have
What's
one
that?
really
There's
fucking
no way that was serious.
really really weird experience where I came out my body and I was almost like staring at like a full model of me, and I was able to like go around it and examine myself like a
Okay, so that's the point that I was going to try to get to. Maybe these things that you're seeing, these entities that you're seeing, are other people that are astral projecting as well, but
potentially.
they're being seen as like the lady that you saw, or the masculine man, because you said you saw yourself as a movie star version of yourself.
What,
Wait,
me?
what? You saw yourself as a movie star, you?
No.
Like a
I
film grain version, right?
Oh, okay, I got what you were
no,
saying.
no, no. Like I seen myself as like a kind of as if it was like a person that I'd seen walking down the street. Like I was just standing there and I was able to observe it and walk around it, like it. And it was
So you
just like
had a double out of body experience.
No, he's saying he was looking at his body. He was
I
outside.
was looking at
He
my
came out of his
body.
body and he was observing himself from the outside. Is what he was
My
suggesting.
body was like almost just like standing kind of like straight, like standing up, and I was like going around and like looking in my eyes and like going around my body and like
Was that
examining.
intentional or unintentional that you
That
popped out of
was
your body while you were
that was
standing there?
completely unintentional. I had no fucking idea what was happening. Like it
Well,
was just crazy.
that's kind of terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah, like I have had quite a lot of terrifying experiences.
Jesus, did this ever happen to you when you drive in your car,
I
like go
was
off a
thinking the same
bridge?
thing.
I've had like no, like I've never like I've had like like especially in the dark and stuff. I kind of sometimes see things in the dark and stuff, but like nothing like I've never came out my body when I'm driving or anything like that. Or it's usually when I'm on the verge of a sleep state that these kind of things happen. So I think there's like a lot of kind of misconceptions as to like it's definitely like when you're on the cusp of sleep that these kind of things happen. So that's what leads me to think that it's more to do with your mind rather than like the kind of REM kind of sleep cycle.
So
Rather-
overall, you would say this normally happens when you're bordering that sleep state, more or
Yeah.
less, not when you're just randomly doing something.
No, I
Closer
wouldn't
to the
randomly,
unconscious.
yeah. So like I wouldn't just like randomly come out my body and be in like this kind of catatonic state while I'm driving or something. But like
Well, your mind wanders more when you're about to go to sleep than it does throughout the day.
yeah. So like definitely it's like I think the most success I've ever had with it was like kind of pretend like almost like trying to trick my body into thinking that I'm asleep. And at that point I'm able to almost to like exit my body type thing. But
What's some
it's
of the what's like the most profound intentional astral projection you had, like that you really thought about? Set your intention, set the mood. You did.
so I think like the one experience that I had, this one's like actually pretty crazy and I can't really explain it. And I actually induced it through meditation, and I was like trying out this meditation because like it's like a kind of similar thing, because like with meditation you're cutting yourself off from the senses. The melatonin is like building up in your body, and that's like what creates the kind of, that's what gets you to go to sleep basically. That's a kind of dream chemical, and that's what
Yeah.
eventually gets converted into DMT in large enough quantities and stuff. But anyway, I had this like, so I was like meditating, and I was doing this for like about an hour, I would say, and I felt like a kind of almost like a presence behind me, kind of.
When you say
Almost-
meditate, how do you meditate? Go in bed and lay down, sitting Buddhist
like,
style, cross leg.
Yeah, kind of. I was sitting in a chair actually when I done this.
Okay.
Um,
Do you
and
believe
almost
in like the whole alignment? Sorry, man. Do you believe in like the whole alignment from like head
Oh,
to
yeah,
chest
100%.
in order to achieve a certain
Yeah,
consciousness?
like I think like 100% there is a lot in breathing techniques and stuff which I used to totally discount, and I used to think it was a load of bullshit. But there is, can speak from experience. There's a lot in it.
Cool. So sitting in a chair, you're aligned.
Yeah, so I was in this really, really deep state, and I felt like a kind of almost like a presence standing behind me, and I got a bit freaked out, but I just kind of pushed through it. And I felt someone like pressuring on the back of my neck, like the top of my spine. And I kind of just like, I was like starting to panic, but I was like, no, I'm just going to relax and push through this and just like try and see where it goes. And I got this kind of like blinding white flash of like blinding white light. And I got like really freaked out. So I like was like, right, okay, that's enough for tonight. I think I've kind of pushed as far as I can go. I'm just going to like go to bed and sleep this off. So my girlfriend was sleeping next door, and I walked through into the hall, and she had like this kind of like skylight above her door, and it was like letting in some light, and where the light was like hitting the ground, it almost like created like a grid pattern, and I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like I'm seeing this like grid pattern where the light was, and I was like, holy shit, right, okay, that's enough. So I'm going to bed, I'm going to sleep this off. And I climbed in bed beside her, and it was almost like within like a couple of seconds of like closing my eyes, it was like someone punched me out my body. And I like started like, so she was in the top apartment of this kind of like flat in Edinburgh that we were staying at the time. And I actually felt myself like hitting through all the different floors of the building on the way down.
Oh,
Like
Yeah.
physically, you physically felt it?
It was just like you just felt
you felt the sensation of
It
going.
was like a
I
sensation,
kind of
but
understand what you're saying.
no pain or anything like that. But
Pressure.
and I was like, what the fuck is happening? I was just like panicking as I was falling through all these floors. And then eventually I kind of came to, and I was in this kind of astral state where I could like go through walls and I could do what I wanted, and I was just like, this is fucking cool. So I was like flying around kind of Edinburgh and stuff, and eventually I was like, right, okay, I need to kind of go back. Like I can't just keep flying around. Like I don't know. So I went back,
Something punched you out of your body, like Doctor Strange style.
like straight up, like I felt like
killed-
something
straight
just
killed
like
the swing,
came
yeah.
out. like something came out and just like literally just kind of hit me on the chest.
Did you have
Yeah.
any sense of what did it to you, or is it more like you just felt like something did it to you, like just out of nowhere?
So like this is where the weird part comes in. So like I come back to my body and I come in and I kind of like wake up and I'm like panicking and like what the fuck was that? And there is like this kind of like being in my room, and it's like this. It's just like pure light. It's just like light. That's all I can see, and it grabs me by the wrist, and it just like almost like kind of what's the word, like merged into my skin. This kind of like bright light, and
Super cool.
so wait,
Did it
this
feel good or did it feel creepy?
Sounds
like,
terrifying.
I was
No,
kinda-
it sounds
I was-
awesome. You're light.
It was really awesome, but I was kind of terrified at the same time. And then so this is the
Powers?
part. What's that?
Did you get powers? It's not a serious question, but
I've
that
not
would be
discovered them yet, but
cool.
so I woke up in the room again, but the room
So you
was
woke up in your bed and you didn't wake up in the chair that you started meditating in?
no, like I left the chair and went to my bed because I was like, nah, fuck.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you were.
No. So like I
It's a
woke
mem.
up. This is the fucking weirdest part, right? So I woke up and the room was a completely different layout, and the bed was in a totally different corner of the room, and like everything was just. So I like woke up and I was like to my girlfriend, I was like, she was like, "Can you get up and like close the door? Like you've left the door open and all this kind of stuff." And I was like, really confused. I was like, "What the fuck is happening? Like, where am I?"
Where's the door? Just-
So I was like, I got up and like closed the door.
Wait,
and it-
so you meditated. You were meditating in your chair. Then you went and you laid down. Seems like maybe your mind was still kind of in the same rhythm. Then you went and you astral projected, and then when you woke up the next morning, the entire room had been rearranged.
like, it was like a completely different layout.
What?
And
Wait. Do you mean like the things had been moved, or do you mean like it was a different floor plan?
it was no, like literally, like the bed that we were in was in the other corner.
What?
Yeah,
the
rearranged.
physical things in the.
Completely rearranged. And I woke up and my girlfriend didn't seem to like have any recollection of anything being changed. So I got up, closed the door, went back to bed. The door kept popping open, so like I kept getting back up and then closing it again. Eventually, like I kind of climbed back into bed and I was like, "What the fuck is this? What's going on here?" And
Wild.
the door popped open like a third time, and there was like this presence like out in the hall, and it like bounded into the room, this kind of like shadowy entity type thing. And my girlfriend like started screaming.
Wait,
And
so
like,
she saw it. She saw this shadow thing come in your room.
right, so wait, so like this is
What?
this is where it gets really weird, right? So she starts screaming and I'm like frozen in this kind of like almost like, what do you call it, sleep
Terror?
paralysis state. I cannot move.
Oh, you
Like, and
couldn't
like
move. So, oh no. Were you
I,
laying down or were you like looking at let the
I
like?
was just like kind of like lying down, looking at it, like kind of frozen in fear. And she's like shaking me and screaming at me. And she's like blah 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 blah. And then we like I like kind of
What was
like
she saying? Was she
what's
saying, "Oh
that?
my God"? What was she
She's
saying? Was
like
she
I am
saying there's a
screaming.
fucking ghost
She's
in the
like
room?
get up, get up. She was like get up, get up, get up. And basically I like woke up and I was back in the kind of the room, the actual room.
Oh my
And
God.
she like grabbed me and she was like, "What the fuck was that?" So
Wait. So your girlfriend, your girlfriend in your room that was arranged wrong, was screaming at you to get up, get up, get up, get up as Mr. Ghosty came in. And
Yeah.
then you woke up back in your normal room with her screaming at you to get up again.
Yeah, and she was like, "What the fuck just happened?" Like I had this horrible dream, and there was this thing in the room.
She said this?
Yeah, and
Oh no.
basically, I had somehow managed to drag her into this
Right.
dream state. or whatever it was.
It
Collective
sounds.
conscious.
Yeah,
Listen,
that
buddy.
doesn't
I'm
sound
gonna
like
be
the
honest
dream
with.
state.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest with you. It sounds like, and this isn't a judgment thing, but it sounds more like you're in you're experiencing entities in a different dimension, and then they're also experiencing you in your dimension, and maybe that's terrifying, and that's why you're like, oh, this is my consciousness, you know. But it seems like these are real situations, and they are fascinating. That seems
There's
like if unless you're some kind of super, maybe when the thing, that the power of the light, maybe when the light merged with you, it gave you the power to manifest your quote unquote consciousness in your girlfriend's life. Because this just sounds more like you're a dimension traveler.
if that's the case, I genuinely don't know how to do it. It just happens, and I can't really control it, and it just. But that was
Well, the fact of the matter is your girlfriend in her body saw something while she was not sleeping, saw the same exact thing that you saw while you were.
No,
When you
no,
saw
no.
her.
He said his girlfriend had the same dream and woke up freaking out, waking him up because she had the same dream that there was an ooga booga in the room.
yeah.
So
She
well,
doesn't
let's
believe
think.
any of
I
this
want to
shit.
bring.
As well.
Listen. I want to bring Jin on here in a minute here. I want to bring him on. He's going to be our next guest here, and because he actually has been listening, Cosmic, and he has some questions and input for you as well.
That
But
was an awesome story about.
before we do that, before we put a pin in this situation, I just want to ask one more time. So tell us a little bit more, because I know you guys talked about this afterwards. Tell us a little bit more about your girlfriend's experience in this situation.
Um,
Did she think it was real? Did she feel like it was a dream? Did she think it was? Did she what? Because like it seems like when you said she woke up freaking out, obviously whatever happened to her in this dream state was something that was not normal for her, not a normal experience. So let's
well,
talk more about that a little bit.
when I started going out with her, I told her all these things, and I was like, these things have happened to me, and like I don't know if you believe in that kind of stuff or not. And I think she was always like very very skeptical until
Right.
that kind of happened. And
So what did she tell you about her experience in this particular situation? Tell us more
so
about like
basically when we kind of woke up, before she'd even had a chance to explain, I was like, the big dark entity came in the room and you tried to shake me awake. And she was like, yeah, like what was that? And she was like, did we have the same dream? How did this happen? Like blah 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 blah. So her kind of thought process was that somehow we had managed to like almost like sympathetically have the same kind of experience. Maybe it's because we were kind of lying next to each other. I don't know.
you guys are trying hard. I mean, it seems like you guys are trying hard to kind of explain it away as something that actually happened to you. I probably would do the same thing, to be honest. I'd be scared.
Yeah,
But
she was like
but
terrified when she woke up. I remember like kind of just like kind of sitting there, kind of flabbergasted, like not really knowing what had happened or how I'd done it. And I was like, kind of like, right, I'm not gonna like fuck about with that anymore because that was kind of freaky. But so yeah, like I don't really know what else to say about that one. It was kind of your guess is as good as mine in regards to that one.
So
so,
without getting into like a full ass article about this experience, it's called shared dreaming, also known as mutual dreams, or when two or more people share a dream experience at the same time. The degree of which a dream is shared can vary from having common elements or events that happen in each person's dreams to an entire dream being the same.
well,
Oh,
here's my thing: is that I'm not convinced that this was a dream that he had or that
Yeah,
they
me either.
had.
Me
I
either.
I
Me
think it's
either.
more like it's easier to assume it's a dream, and that's a lot easier to explain away the situation
Yeah.
than that something dripped into the wrong reality and you both saw it.
I
Yeah.
think see when like in regards to like especially with like astral projection and things like this, I think like you're kind of like almost like bridging gaps between like different like like
Dimensions.
realities, yeah,
Yeah.
dimensions or like even like different states of consciousness.
Well, they
Right?
say
And
we only use about
Go ahead.
10% of our brain. They say we
Yeah,
only use
only
about 10% of
10%.
our brain.
Yeah.
And like when I was in high school, there was this chick who said she was a witch, and she used to come sometimes and visit me in my dreams. Remember the first time?
Whoa.
Yeah, remember the first time it happened, I was like, "No, I told her
Gave me
oh,
goosebumps.
I told her, "Oh, I had a dream about you." And she was like, "Ah, no, that was me visiting you." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever, that's BS." But then she did it like 3 or 4 more times. And then so it was like I kind of believed her. 'Cause I mean, it wasn't like yeah, so I don't
Got
know, man.
chills. Said that
I
I got chills from the top of my head.
and
Down to the
there's
bottom of
another
my
story. There's a story I want to tell you guys about my experience. I want to get in depth with my experience with sleep paralysis and what actually happened to me when I was young. And it was a really it's a story that I'll never forget. It's something that happened that I'll never forget. And to this day, it's like one of those things where I'm questioning what really happened, but I know in my heart of hearts, I know I'm pretty sure. So, anyways, but before we do that, what I want to do here is I want to go ahead. We're gonna be bringing in Jin here. Now, like I said, Jin is he's gonna be our second guest. He like I said, he has some questions for Cosmic. He's got a lot of input for us from a clinical perspective, from an experience perspective, as well as like from a scientific perspective. He is like I said, a researcher for a scientific organization. He has some good accreditations. Obviously, because of this subject, we don't want to necessarily say where he works or whatever, but we will just know that.
Who does number 2 work for?
Who does number 2 work for?
You
Anyways,
want me to slide him over?
yeah, let's go ahead and slide him over. I don't know if he's got his. We'll just see when he comes in because he's well, here he is. No, so I don't know if he's
He's
still muted.
muted.
So he might. I know he's having issues. There he is. Hey, Jen.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
hear you, man. How are you?
Hold on, let me mute this. Oh, okay. Yeah, what's going on, guys? I didn't have specific questions for him. It was just like if I had input.
Well, let's start with this, Jen. First off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you're from, how old are you, and what's a little bit about your experience, kind of with the subject, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit of a crossfire here.
All right, so I guess I can start with a general general timeline. So I'm 24 years old, and I was born in the United States, and I never really left the United States. So I've been here my whole life, and
Dang.
my family was Catholic, right? This was the religion that they practiced, but Catholicism was something that I didn't really grow into. It was something that was there, but didn't participate in it, mostly because we were kind of like lazy Catholics, right? You know, not doing the
Catholics in
things-
name, right?
exactly. So
Did you go? You didn't go to church every Sunday, but you probably show up for the picnic once a year, huh?
Right. So it wasn't like I had connected heavily to this religion. Honestly, it's I can't say that I really know very much of anything in Catholicism, but that was basically life up until my teen years, like 12, like around age 12. I had been on the internet a lot. I had talked to many people from different countries, and I had got introduced into like Eastern philosophy and Eastern religions like Buddhism, Hinduism. And so I was reading a lot of literature from those religions, and I connected much more easily and very quickly to these religions at a very young age. And whilst I was doing that, I had, you encounter many things related to like occult practices, states of consciousness and whatnot in Buddhism and Hinduism, because I mean that's kind of the whole point and the whole purpose of that practice, like spiritual practice in general. But they have like these very specific goals. And
Nirvana, right?
Right. So spiritual practice in that context, their goal would be to achieve, that like enlightenment, because the metaphysical beliefs that they have is that, reincarnation is something that happens after you pass on, and
Right.
their goal is to not participate in that cycle. But when you read the literature, these concepts come up a lot, and things like projection it's like something that would be touched on, but not discussed in detail. Like there's no chapter on astral projection that you'll find in that kind of religious literature.
So how did religion bring you, or how did the study of these types of religions and stuff kind of bring you to an experience of either astral projection or out of body experiences? Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit. Tell us a little bit about let's marry where we were at before, kind of talking with Cosmic, to your experience and your knowledge. Let's jump right into some of the things you've experienced and some of the things that you've learned.
Yeah. So the first time, so I could say somewhere between 12 and 13, you know, I had been reading about many different people having these weird like extrasensory perception abilities. People in India, people in Indonesia, you know, like reading all this weird stuff just out of interest. And
Right.
like at some point, I had discovered the book Journeys Out of the Body, written by Robert Monroe, and I read this book and
So you're familiar with that book, aren't you, Cosmic? The
Yeah, he mentioned
Robin Monroe. He
Monroe
mentioned
before.
Robin Monroe. Yeah.
right,
I'm sorry. Go
so
ahead, Jen.
this was the first book that he wrote, and like in this book, he'll explain that he came up with the term out of body experience because when he was investigating it himself and he couldn't find any information, he could only find stuff referencing astral projection, and there was some negative connotations to that label. You know, it was associated with like weirdos. So
Right.
he just wanted like a neutral, objective term, and it is. I mean, it gets to the point. You know, like out of body experience. You know, that's essentially that's what it is. So I discovered that book somehow. I can't remember, and I read it. And like after that point, I have an experience that I can recall. It had to have been very close to that time after I read that book, and I think what had happened was like reading that book had like planted like a subconscious thought to recall the experience when it happens, because I'm sure that you must have had, or I must have had numerous of those experiences, but it's just that like up to that point you just write those things off as like dreams or nightmares or something. You know, you don't think about it too often, and your
Of
memory is
course,
still
because
developing.
and a lot of those times too is like you don't think about it because it doesn't match reality. It's not. Oh, it doesn't make sense. I'll just
And
write
like
it
you said
off.
before, right, it's easier to just write it off as a dream than to try to explain to somebody that what you saw was real.
Ah, some
Yeah.
ooga booga shadow monster came in the room. Ah, we both saw it. Ah, fuck it, it was a dream. I mean, to be honest, it makes a lot more sense than saying, "Oh yeah, well, that some ooga booga monster came into our room from a different dimension."
I think as
Because
human beings, we have a hard time trying to grasp anything that's out of anything normal.
yeah,
To just to write things off as dream is just easier to do. Try to have our come up with some sort of logical, but it might be something that we not familiar with or something scared about. Trying to human being.
sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off there, Jen. Anyway, but
No,
go ahead.
but no, you guys are right. That's exactly what it is. It's much easier to write it off as a dream or a nightmare, but especially if you're a child. If you're a child, you're not very good at communicating your thoughts or
Sure.
analyzing things. So you're not thinking about it at all. A kid can probably jump in and out of body experience and wouldn't think twice about what just happened. Probably won't remember much.
Yeah, my son's
But
going through a sleepwalking phase right now. It's really
Oh,
right. So
Eh,
when you're older, you're better at analyzing things, and you'll start thinking more deeply about some experience. Like, oh, that was an very bizarre thing that I just went through. But I think reading that book had made me more alert to remembering that experience. And there's so that was like that's like the earliest
Was there
one that I
like
can.
exercises in the book that say like what to look out for if you find yourself in some sort of out of body or astral plane or something?
and what was the
So the
book of?
whole
Go ahead.
the entire thing is about him experiencing a spontaneous out of body experience completely
Completely.
by accident. Well, he had a company and he was investigating. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
we can
good.
still hear you.
Okay. Oh, okay. So he was just
Where'd Cosmic
investigating.
go?
No, just go ahead. Keep going.
Is there?
It is like a.m.
Yeah.
He's in the waiting room.
So
Go ahead.
he had like accidentally caused a spontaneous out of body experience. He was investigating, or he's researching sleep learning, which is just like you play some tapes while you're sleeping of maybe somebody teaching, saying some information, and he wanted to know if you could wake up and know and retain that information. But while he was doing that, he had popped out of his body, and he, was in his room, and he can see his physical body, and he's floating around. He's like, oh, this is so weird. And he didn't think too much of it, but he remembered it. And then this happened a couple more times. And the rest of the book is just him trying to now figure out what it was he had experienced, and learning more about this experience as something that is real, in the sense of, it's not just something that's hallucinated. There's things that you can verify with other people, that you might have seen some information that's non-local to you that you could not have accessed physically, from being in your bedroom going to sleep.
Like remote viewing type stuff too. Talk about that's in the
Yeah.
same line. The James Monroe, the Manhattan, was it the Philadelphia project, and the other project. I think those are I think OBEs are kind of closely related to that type of thing, aren't they?
Yeah, I would put all of those in like the category of extrasensory perception, and
Right.
remote viewing and OBEs are considered to be like distinctly different, just because the means that you're accessing the information is different. Like out of body experience, you could physically be there doing all kinds of stuff, and remote viewing is like you're kind of seeing it as a spectator, almost,
I see.
And
I got a
it's
question though. You mentioned that guy played the tapes to try to learn something while he was sleeping, that was playing on the tapes to see if he would remember it. Was he successful with that?
Yes, I think it wasn't. He was trying to find out if it was possible. It is possible, and he already knew that. But I think he was trying to find out the effectiveness, like how good was it? Am I gonna retain it very, very well, or am I just gonna kind of have some like little bit of subconscious memory of the whatever the tapes were saying? But yeah, sleep
Let me
sleep
stop you
learning
right
is good.
there. Let me just stop you right there real quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just want to make sure, Cosmic, are you back with us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay,
you now.
cool. Just want to make sure we were having some. He was we were having some technical difficulties. Want to get that straightened out. Anyway, Jin, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so you were asking if he has guides or exercises. No, and I no, it's just him talking about his experiences.
This is the book you're talking about, right? The book that you
Yeah,
read
his
that
first.
kind of unlocked your experience, your first experience.
Right, he was just talking. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't let's get to your I don't want to be too insistent, but I want to get to your experience.
Right.
Because I want to have a chance, because I know it's late for Cosmic, but I want to have you guys kind of have a chance to kind of compare notes, as they would say,
Okay.
based on both of your experiences. So we can, like I said, we can kind of get to that crossfire, and then kind of unlock maybe a little bit more of this experience for the both of you.
All right, let me try and get there. So the first one, all I can recall, at some point, just like distinctly, I became alert, and I was on the floor, and in my bedroom at that time, I was like 13 years old, and all I had was a mattress on the floor. I was like a very simple teenager. I didn't need this whole big bed, so I just had a mattress on the floor. And when I was alert, I was on the floor, and next to me, I could see my body very clearly, like the lump on the mattress. And when I turned to the other side of my room, and I could see this very large black, like round silhouette, and had this kind of like neutral expression face on it. I always at the time I always compared it to like this thing in like Spirited Away, but see, I've never actually watched that movie. All I remember. Yeah, there's like a character in that movie, and it looked exactly like that. But I've never actually seen that movie. But this thing scared me. Right, I was very frightened when I saw it, because it was just very weird. And after. Sorry, what?
Like, it was almost kind of like fear personified. Like it was just like you felt this sudden over, like it just like your whole body just like surged with like adrenaline and
Y-
just panic.
Yeah, I
It's
felt
like same thing. Like
yeah, no, I felt naked. Like right, like after I had I felt vulnerable.
Violated?
No, like just vulnerable. Like just frightened. If you
Yeah.
felt it was a weird sensation, but seeing this whole experience must have been like a couple seconds. But those are the only two things that I remember. But after I had got up, later, whenever I had gotten up, I recalled that experience, and I immediately related it to the projections experiences. But after that, I just went about my business. I didn't try to induce any experiences or anything. I just kind of went about my business. Um, but I would say so. Recently, this had to have been um, kind of hard. This was sometime maybe last year, but so this is much later. So this is like what, a decade later. Um, I started having some very weird sensations. Then I had some spontaneous experiences, and then I started working on practice like a few months
So,
ago.
so tell us about the weird sensations, then the spontaneous experiences that led
Yeah,
to you kind of delving into a little bit more of your practices.
right. Okay, so I share a bedroom with my girlfriend, and she would get up very early in the morning to get to her job, like around like 6 in the morning, and my college lectures would be much later in the day, maybe like 9 a.m. or maybe even like
I can see
12,
where
right?
you're going here. This is even seems like the trend
Yeah,
kind of to where you're waking up, you kind of get woke up groggy, then you go back to sleep, right?
exactly. So that's exactly what happened. So sometimes when she would get up, she'd have to turn on the light, and if I tried to go back to sleep in those conditions, I would end up not being able to fall back asleep, and I was becoming restless because of this. So what I decided to do was go into my spare bedroom whenever I heard the alarm go off, in order to fall asleep very quickly. So I want to get away from the light
Sure.
because
Right, right.
the light naturally starts waking your body up, and then you can't go back to sleep. So the alarm would go off, and I started going to the spare bedroom, and I'd go to sleep. And the first sensation that I had was I would fall asleep very quickly when I go into the spare bedroom, and I recalled waking up randomly like several times with these very weird, almost like painful, kind of like feeling a little bit of pain in my brain, kind of like this like shocking, like electric activity or something. It kind of felt like my like the top of my head was being open, like a can opener, like someone was like, touching
Now
my
let me
my
ask you,
brain.
was it because I'm familiar with a similar sensation that is associated with me with my sleep paralysis. Was it pain or was it more like pins and needles, almost like everything was going numb?
Like pins and needles.
There you
That's
go.
how I would
Okay.
put it. It's a stinging. It's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
electrical activity.
Okay. I'm familiar. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with the feeling. Okay. Go
Um, I,
ahead.
I think like now after the fact, I think that I was naturally resisting these like separation, um, these sensations of separation, and the resistance of it, and whilst it's happening, causes this
Discomfort.
those weird, yeah, these
Yeah.
weird sensations, and
You
but
know
all
what's
I
interesting? You
remember,
say that, not to cut you off, but I've been there to where like initially you like I'm sure maybe some of other people have been too, to where like you and that was what you just said is very interesting because it kind of brings me back to that position to where um if you fight it, it's a little bit more uncomfortable, but you almost feel like you can let go, but knowing that you will let go is also uncomfortable and almost scary to let go and kind of give into that feeling.
well,
right?
I've got something to add to this
Yeah.
because that seems to be like a reoccurring theme with a lot of things, like with meditation, with DMT, with APs and things like that. Is that kind of fighting the fear, like that kind of because it's unnatural. It doesn't feel natural to leave your body. Like it's
True.
and I think that's to do with the thing is when you start to experience fear and panic and all this kind of stuff, your body obviously releases stress hormones.
And it's almost
which
like
kind of
it's almost like
counteracts the so it's like it counteracts the kind of build up of the
it's like your
melatonin.
conscious.
what you
It's like
think,
your
yeah,
conscious. It's almost like your conscious mind having a knee jerk reaction to try to pull back control from your subconscious mind. You
yeah,
know,
that's it.
How do you
it's like
prepare
you
for
kind of
that
have to.
type of journey?
You kind of like
think you can.
well, no, you can, and it's interesting you say that because I know Cosmic kind of mentioned it, and I'm sure Jin probably has a little bit of experience, at least some experience with it. Is like he said, is you prepare yourself by doing the no, not reading. You do like the binaural beats. You do sleep hypnosis
Binaural.
before you go to sleep. You know, there's
I mean, like physically being in, like, mentally being in that realm and
so what
not
you do.
panicking.
So that's
You know,
that's the thing that
Yeah.
we're talking about is you do that through conditioning, and that conditioning
right?
comes through Cosmic was talking about earlier. It comes through a couple things. Comes through doing your research, of course, but number one, it comes through practicing these things consistently. You know, for a week or for 2 weeks or whatever. Even if they don't work, you continue to practice. Uh, picking the right hypnosis. Like I said, the one that I used that actually worked for me was Jody Whitley, easy sleep hypnosis for lucid dreaming or something on YouTube, and you find something you're comfortable with, a voice that makes sense, and you just practice. You know, and a lot of these hypnosises, when you go through them, they because they've done them for so long and they walk you through them, they know the state you're supposed to be in at a certain point of time. So when you get to that state where you're kind of, it's almost like when you get to the top of some stairs and you think there's another step because you're not paying attention. So you take
Yeah.
that step, you know what I mean? So it's like through this conditioning, it prepares you to be ready to take that step, even though it's not there or whatever, or to deal with the sensation of, you know what I mean, of, oh gosh, I'm actually lucid dreaming. You know, they go through the, oh well, once when we get to this state, you're gonna feel X or you're gonna feel Y or you're gonna feel Z, and this is how you're gonna react. And they kind of train. It's hard to explain, but like I'll send you guys the link to the one that I've used in the past, and if you listen to a little bit, it'll open your mind up a lot. It's
Mm.
better with headphones and stuff like that. Like I sleep almost every night now. I put something on headphones because it helps me go to sleep now, just based on me used to doing that. But yeah, there are ways to kind of prepare, but I don't think, and I think everybody would probably agree. There's probably no true way to truly be prepared for a situation like that, to where, like you said, where you're getting punched through the whether it's getting punched through the ground or having monsters show up or what have you. You know.
I had
Anyways,
two
go ahead,
things.
Jin.
Yeah, I had two things I wanted to say about that.
Yeah.
The big reason, like, it's so scary because when it happens so abruptly and unexpectedly, that's what starts to spook you. Because if you're just sitting there with your closed eyelids and everything's been the same for a length of time, and then all of a sudden you're feeling these weird sensations, that initial abrupt sensation is gonna start scaring you. And and I was gonna say, in terms of being ready for it, I think, yeah, if you expose yourself to it so many times, you have to at some point be comfortable with that. And I think if you're able to experience it twice in a row, the second time it won't scare you. The first time scares you
Right.
because it was not expected. Um, but not this. If you can get it to happen, like vibrations, that kind of thing, on the second round, it's not so scary because you're kind of a little expecting it. But
I've read
Well,
like a lot of stuff on Reddit. There was this other guy who I was talking to. I was trying to get him on also show, but he's kind of busy. He has his own YouTube channel and he talks about his experiences with astral projection. Very convincing. Here's a YouTube. Talks about one of the most recent times he had astral projecting is trying to pull other people out of their unconscious state, because he says he sees other people, like his girlfriend laying next to him in bed, in this astral projection realm, but it's her unconscious it's her unconscious. He
Her
was trying
astral
to
body, and her
Yeah,
astral
her
body isn't
astral body.
awake.
So he was trying to run an experiment, help pull people out from the unconscious to the conscious while being in.
Seems
And
like a
it's
bad
just
idea.
Yeah, he
It seems that's
concluded.
really
Yeah.
meddlesome.
he
Meddlesome and
concluded
possibly psychologically damaging to people.
he concluded that it was a bad idea. Ultimately, he said don't do it. But
I'm
the
just
journey was
minding
really
my
interesting.
business, and somebody just rips me out of
So
my into the astral plane.
so there's a practice, I guess, when you don't know or if you're questioning and you project to close your like pinch your nose, and if you could still breathe through your nose, you're in the astral realm.
Yes, that's true.
So that's what he was trying to get
Because when you're in the
for
astral,
people to
breathe
do
through your ears.
or whatever. If you could still breathe and you pinch your nose, and
I'm joking. I don't know.
That works
I
in
don't know.
dreams too.
So right, like it's along the lines with like flicking on the lights and stuff, and like looking at clocks. In
You had something to say, Justin?
I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay, so great. So one thing I want to real quick. We're gonna take a couple minutes here. I want to tell my story about what happened to me when I was young. And
Oh
it's kinda
God.
get your guys' thoughts on the situation. And it's kind of weird, but I mean, all right. So I'm gonna tell you the story. So I was I don't know how long I've been living down here. I was living I had my own bedroom, of course. I was 15, maybe 15, 16, living in South Florida. And I was having issues like for a couple nights because like I used to get them in bouts where I get the sleep paralysis in bouts, right? And so and like I used to be able to like so I don't know if I was just superstitious or whatever, but I used to always sleep with my closet closed. 'Cause my closet was literally like my bed, my bed. If I'm laying in my bed, so then on my right is my window, and then on my left is my floor, and then my dresser, and then all the way on the wall is my closet. Had one of those, the closet with the accordion, the accordion boys, slidey
Mhm.
slidey
Yeah.
boys. So I always slept with my closet closed, but this particular night, for some reason, I just didn't close it or whatever. I was too lazy to get out of bed, so I left it open. So I remember waking up. And when I woke up, I was in my neighborhood, right? I wasn't in my bed, but I was like, I remember going to sleep and having a paralysis thing, but then I remember waking up and I was in my neighborhood. And I knew it was my neighborhood, everything was straight, but I knew there was something bad and it was far away, but it was coming. I don't know how I knew, but I just knew. So it was like a nightmare. And then so everything was green. Everything had a green fucking tinge to it. So I ran down my street, ran to my house, ran upstairs. Like I tried to talk to my parents or whatever, and I don't remember like they weren't there, they didn't believe me or whatever the situation was. So I remember going and then getting in my I'm like, whatever, fuck it. I'm gonna just go to bed. And I remember laying back in my bed, right? And when I laid in my bed, then boom, the sleep paralysis hit again. And so like I was laying in my bed and then it was like I wasn't dreaming. I was literally back laying in my bed. It's hard to explain, but it was like I said, I wasn't dreaming. I was dreaming when I was outside, like when I was outside and there was a green tinge and the thing was coming. But when I came home and laid in my bed, like I was just laying in my bed and I knew the thing was like still coming. And then there was a fucking green glow coming from my closet, right? And I couldn't really see it, but I could kind of sense it. And I kind of like turned my head. You know how like when you have sleep paralysis, you can't really move, but I could kind of inch my head over. So I kind of inched my head and rolled my head. It was like, like I don't know if anybody who's ever had sleep paralysis, if you know what I'm talking
I
about. It's
never
like
have.
it's most
I never have either.
No,
like I
I
could
get what you're saying.
yeah.
I get what
So
you're saying. Yeah, it's true
I
that you
was
can't
trying to
move.
turn my head. So when I finally saw and I saw the green glow in my closet, I was pissed. I was like, fuck, man, leave me alone. So I remember saying basically F you to the closet, right? And whatever was in the closet picked me up out of my bed and threw me in front of my fucking door in my house, right? And then I woke up. And I woke up on the floor in front of my fucking door. And
Oh,
and it like 2 or 3 weeks I slept with my light on, with the light on, my door open, freaking closet closed. That shit like scared the crap out of me, and I thought it was all a dream until freaking the thing. I told it to fuck off basically, and it threw me across my room, and I woke up on the ground. I was not a happy camper for
Wh-
weeks.
When
Anyway,
did
so
you say
that's
the
my
sleep?
story.
When did you say the sleep paralysis started? You said you were in the neighborhood,
So, all
and
right.
you
So
said
I had been having issues with sleep paralysis like for like a couple days, and then so when I went to sleep that night, I had the same thing to where I got the sleep paralysis, but then I went to sleep, and then I woke up, like like I don't know, like 5 minutes from my house, like in the front of my neighborhood. And like I said, everything had like a weird green tint, and I knew something was coming. I can't remember if I heard the footsteps or if I whatever, but I was like, oh shit. And it was kind of like a lucid dream at that point, because like when I realized that like literally the world had a green tint, and I don't remember or not, but I think I might have heard footsteps, but I remember to myself thinking, oh fuck, this is a nightmare. And I was like, well, that's not good. So then I ran home, and then when I got home, tried to talk to my parents, couldn't really talk to anybody. It was one of those surreal things, like a dream things. And I went upstairs, closed my door, got into bed, looked over at the closet basically, and then I realized that at that point, I wasn't sure if I was awake or if I was dreaming. I didn't know what was going on. And then like I was like, oh, I'm still dreaming. But then the reason that I think that I was awake is because the thing threw me out of my bed, and then I woke up on the floor. Like, and here's the thing, like just to give you perspective, like when I woke up on the floor, it wasn't like, oops, I rolled and fell out of bed. It was like my bed was in one spot, and then like my door is, 5, 6, whatever, 10, I don't know, however, X, Y, Z feet away. And I was in front of my door, to where like I would have had to have gotten up, physically walked, 5 or 6 steps to get to that position. It wasn't like I could have just rolled out of bed and fell on the floor. So, and I remember I woke up with the sensation of hitting the ground by my door after thinking that I'm dreaming that something picked me up out of my bed and threw me on the ground, because that's not a thing that can happen. And it was all the whole that was my experience basically. Like I said, the sleep paralysis pretty much happened before I fell asleep and began to have that dream, and then like I said, the point right before, I whatever, like I was out of my bed. So
How bad was the distance between you and your bed? Was it like a large distance, or like a reasonably like a throwable distance? Like how strong?
like
was
yeah, so like it wasn't like I didn't have like my room's not like a penthouse. It was just a regular, we had like a 3 or 4 bedroom house, so it wasn't like a huge room, but it was like I don't know, like I don't think like I could have thrown myself that far at 15. So I mean, like maybe the size something that a grown man could like probably put their arms under your back and under your legs and kind of toss you. It wasn't like a substantial distance where it was like, oh my god, he threw me 30 feet, where it was obviously not something that a human could do. But at the same point, it was like I said, I woke up alone in my room on the ground. So
Like I've, I don't think I've ever had an experience where it's been like super physical. Like I've woke up and it's like like thrown me from my bed. So that sounds like pretty extreme. Like it sounds like pretty crazy. Like I've not had any kind of experiences like that. That sounds pretty interesting. I'd like to get into that a bit more as well. Like with you at some point. 'Cause that sounds really cool.
well, I mean,
Well,
it was
cool in a
scary. It
interesting
was
way, but it sounds
So
terrifying.
let me ask you
yeah.
guys. Let me ask you guys a question. Have you guys ever had a dream, like an actual dream, where something may have been chasing you and you tried to run and you can't physically run in your dream? Is that considered sleep paralysis?
No, like sleep paralysis is like right. So the easiest way to explain it is like
Like
your
mechan
body goes to sleep, but your
nightmare
mind's still
mechanics.
awake.
Yeah,
So
because
you
I want to relate with you guys, and I'm just trying to think of a situation where it's something kind of like he just explained with his, where he was running from something and then,
He's never had
some.
an experience of sleep paralysis to
I
where
don't think I have.
You were
what it
so
trying
is
to
like
get
basically.
up and you couldn't.
That's
so
not really like sleep paralysis. Like it's not necessarily where you're trying to get up and you couldn't. It's like it was interesting the way Jin kind of described. I think it was Jin a little bit. Maybe it was Jin, or I think it might have been Cosmo. I'm not really sure now. Kind of like the pins and needles to the pain, where like he said basically, it's your mind is still awake, like to a degree, but your body is asleep. So like your mind basically has shut. Sleep paralysis basically allegedly occurs like basically when your body and most of your functions are pretty much shut down, and then your mind is asleep. Your mind's basically awake. So it's like your body's asleep, so you can't really move. But I mean, you can through effort you can shake yourself awake or whatever, or kind of like a micro
Yeah, it's exactly what I thought sleep paralysis was. So yeah, I've never experienced that.
You ever had the thing where you're about to go to sleep and you're kind of still awake, but then like you fall kind of in your like dream awake thingy, and then you whoop, in bed, you kind of like jump up in bed?
No,
You never had the thing where like you fall
no,
and you're in
man.
bed, like you're half asleep, half awake?
Trust me, I want to experience it. It's just
Crazy.
it never happened.
See, like I used to get it quite a lot when I came home from school, and it was like when I'd be really tired from school and I'd like have a nap on the couch. So it's like
Yeah.
when you're like a bit kind of overtired and you kind of like I don't know why, but for me it's always when I fall asleep on my back,
Right?
and I kind of go into this kind of like state where like now I don't panic because it's happened to me quite a few times, but it is like the first time it happens to you, it's pretty horrible because you feel like you're paralyzed, you can't move.
I mean,
You've got that
I've had the sleep in places where it's not. You probably shouldn't sleep, and I'm sleeping and I'm still hearing everything that's going on around me, but that's just because I know that I need to be alert at all times.
That's kind of it's not that's a
You know
little
what kind of you know what the sleep I'm talking about, Pat.
but that's kind of but that's kind of like that's similar in a way. Because like that's like it's kind of like where like maybe you're kind of dreaming and like people are talking and it's kind of somehow kind of weirdly incorporated into your dreams
Yeah.
type deal. So that's
Yeah.
similar but not quite the same. Because that's almost the opposite. That's almost like sleeping in a state of hyper alertness, is what you're kind of talking about.
So you can definitely still receive communication while you're dreaming outside of your physical body, wherever you may be. All of that sensory input is still going to reach you if
Right.
somebody's talking right next to your physical body. But the sleep paralysis is like distinctly you are just you feel like your body is like a lead brick or something. It's just so heavy and you can't move.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And you start panicking maybe because you're wondering why I can't move, and you might move your eyes because it's the only thing that you can move, and you maybe start hallucinating or seeing some things that are frightening because most likely you'll be in like a dark bedroom and you'll start looking at the shadows and thinking that that's some demon or something. So that's like the common thing that people experience is they
So
feel like they're heavy.
Here's my postulation on that too, is that like I like Jin's perspective because he's being extremely clinical. You know, coming at it from extremely logical a logical side of things. That this is what people are seeing, and this is why, and this is the actuality. That they're actually hallucinating these things. But I don't necessarily think that you know, these things may not be a figment, as they say, of our subconscious. You know, these things may be real. You know,
Side note about sleep paralysis: a really cool band out there named Dredge. They wrote a concept album based on sleep paralysis and the effects and hallucinations that it causes. Really, really awesome band called El Cielo. If anyone's interested.
I don't know if you guys have
Anyways,
been.
go ahead, Jin.
I don't know if you. So I consider like astral entities to be different from some of the things you might be seeing when you're in a sleep paralysis state, because you can never really be too sure until you get that separation. Because I don't know if you guys have ever been, you know, like really really sleep deprived. But when you get to a certain level of sleep deprivation, you will start hallucinating. Very
Absolutely.
sure.
I've been there.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
there. I've stayed up for 7 days. Okay, I've been there.
Right,
Starts
and
up
that's kind
shadows
of what
in
it
the
is.
corner of the eyes.
If you think about the sleep paralysis, when it happens abruptly in the middle of the night, the person wakes up and they're still extremely tired because they haven't had a full night sleep. So it's like they're kind of in that like sleep deprived, easy to hallucinate state. But you gotta understand too, is like your brain is this like a it takes in some input and it has to interpret what it's seeing, and everything that you're looking at is being interpreted so that and broadcast like displayed for you to see it. So your eyes, you know, they trick you. You start seeing something that's vaguely shaped like a humanoid, you know, maybe like a hat stand or something. It could easily resemble a humanoid figure, something that'll scare you. But that's not to say that all entities are figments of your imagination. It's just like it's hard to determine that until you like full separate.
I think you're more vulnerable, as you said. I think you're more vulnerable in that state when your brain is at the alpha wave or whatever, and like you said, when it's kind of more of your subconscious really big in charge of things, and that's really what's in, because normally because your subconscious isn't supposed to be the one that's really relaying what's in your eyes. You know, your conscious relays that, and then your subconscious kind of interprets that. So like when you're in that state, I do agree 100% that you're in a far more vulnerable state to seeing things and having things suggested. But then at the same time, there's a lot of stories about people who are in, and I mean a lot of, I mean heaps upon heaps of stories and a wealth of you know, maybe, albeit maybe all anecdotal, maybe not, stories of people seeing things and experiencing things while they're in that state of sleep paralysis. And a lot of the stories, you know, are consistently mention things like the shadows or whatever. And I think that science it rushes to say, hey, yeah, of course, this is why, and the reason why this is because it's your brain seeing shadows. But at the same time, I think there's some validity to people consistently seeing something like shadow people or the men in the hat or whatever it is. Like I'm not super versed on what people are always seeing when there's the sleep paralysis, but I know there's some common themes of people seeing like the shadow guy on their bed or the this or the that near their bed or whatever. So I mean, I don't know. You know, and like
No, I've seen those too. No, I've seen those too. And I would say if these things happen during the daytime, you know, and there's a lot of sunlight, I've noticed that I've always had much more positive experiences without seeing any kind of weird looking intruders or anything. I think because like when the sunlight is out and everything looks light, naturally you don't feel as frightened. But when these things people try to do this at nighttime, they try to have the out of body experience. Everything naturally is going to look dark and gloomy and depressing. And some people kind of associate like, oh, I'm just seeing demons and dark stuff. But that again, I'm not saying that the entities are all hallucinated or
Yeah,
fake
even
or
in the
something.
dark, a rabbit looks scary.
Yeah.
Right. It's a dark environment. It's gonna be a little frightening. But
That's very true.
I would say try if you have sleep paralysis in the daytime. I haven't had any. I haven't encountered or seen anything like in the very rare cases, because usually they happen at night because that's when you go to sleep.
Yeah. I
Like-
wonder, like, if somebody who works like third shift and has sleep paralysis problems, like their stuff would happen at like noon. I wonder if their experiences would be different than somebody like, for instance, who, you know, a normal person who goes to sleep at whatever and has their sleep paralysis at, you know, 10, 11, 12, midnight or whatever. But I keep coming back in my mind to Cosmic's story here, to be honest, with the shadow guy that they both saw,
Yeah.
you know. And it's just that type of story really makes me wonder about the OBEs and like you said I mean shared dream experiences. There's so many, like when you read kind of like the overview of that, there's a lot of different definitions and kind of categories for shared dream state. And what he kind of described is not something that I'm familiar with even on the OBE situation or whatever. It's something that's really kind of really mind blowing, to be honest, to hear somebody say, "Hey, you know, I woke up." And it's funny too because, and I'll tell you another thing which is kind of interesting to me about that, just real quickly, is that kind of what you said, the way you told your story, to where you weren't really sure at some point, like when you were really awake or when you were asleep, reminds me a lot of of my story, to where I'm not really sure when I was awake and when I was asleep. And it just makes more sense that, you know what I mean? Oh, it was dream. For all I know, I was astral projecting, you know, down my street or whatever, and then went back to my house because I was like, oh man, something bad's coming, and then that thing just showed up and fucked with me because I told it to fuck off. I don't know. But because here's the thing, like when I tell you, because I'll never forget the shit. When I squished my head over, and I remember being so fucking mad because this thing would leave me alone. I wanted to go to sleep, and just telling it "f you," and then me like that, like a snap in my hands. I was freaking flung out of my bed. So I don't know, dude. It was, anyways, but like that's the story there that you're saying. Like I want to know, like, did the thing that came in the room, like, so you kept trying to close the door, and then it wouldn't close, and then freaking Papa Scary comes in there, and
Well,
she tell us more about, like, did she, when she was like when she was shaking you awake, so she seems like this, she
when
saw it.
when she was shaking me awake, so this is where things start to get weird because like when I woke up when I woke up for the third time or whatever, I don't know what it was. Um, I really struggled with what the fuck reality was because I'd woken up twice already, and I had been in a different place. So I was just like really confused. But so when she was like shaking me awake, I was in that kind of sleep paralysis state where I was like completely frozen in this, and she was like proper. She was hysterical. She was like screaming and like shaking me, and trying to like picking me up almost and like shaking me, and I
So she
just
saw
couldn't
the
move.
thing then. So she didn't have a dream. She saw this thing, and it would just seem like it
Yeah,
was probably easier to say, "Oh yeah, oops, haha, it was just a dream." You know.
yeah, like it was harder to deny because I was like I had the same dream, and I told her about what I'd done. Like I told her that I'd been meditating and
Did she
I got
mention anything about the room looking weird, or?
She didn't, but the room was like just like definitely in a completely different layout, as if, and that makes me question like have I like did I go into like almost like a splinter reality, like almost like a kind of like an alternate reality that was similar but kind of just
That's
like completely
something, as weird as that sounds. That's something that I wanted to explore at some point. I kind of wanted to write a short story about that, about how sometimes when we dream, I feel like, I don't know, it's true or whatever I say. I think that sometimes when we dream, or I feel like it's possible, in the fantasy world, that when we dream, that we slip between dimensions in our
quite
minds.
possibly like. And when I read that Robert, is it Robert Monroe, the kind of um, Project Gateway thing, the guy talks specifically about almost like your brain, like I think your brain's capable of traveling at the kind of, because this there's like a lot of like theories about the brain, the psyche being like eighth dimensional, so like above our third dimension where we can and they're saying that like our brain can almost like travel at the like above the speed of light. So when you like hit that kind of click out point, when you hit that kind of speed of light, you're then out of the realms of our kind of third dimension.
Well, it makes
And like
sense
how
though, because like
yeah,
thought occurs. I mean, like when you think, like, allegedly, I mean, it makes sense because like consciousness would be something that would occur because the speed of light is something you're measuring, something that's physical still. Light is still technically, it's a wave, so it's still physical. While
yeah,
thought is not, so it should, why wouldn't you be able to theoretically in your consciousness travel outside of time and space?
and I think that's like like even when like I know Jin has studied a lot of kind of like the Eastern philosophies and things, and like where do you think all these like characters and stuff came from, like Krishna and this little blue guy that um like I
That's a
think
cool
like,
perspective.
and it's all like all myth in general. Like where do you think like Perseus getting like sandals that kind of like allows him to fly, like all this kind of stuff, like all this is like intrinsically linked.
Yeah. It's
Um,
even possible. Hell, it's even possible that the things that we see, maybe some of the hallucinations or the manifestations that we see, that we're when we're in this state of this out of body, or this complete paralysis state, maybe it's those things from those other dimensions, or those other earths, those other realities, kind of bleeding into us being able to see them in our dimension. Maybe ghosts are just people sleeping in other dimensions,
like,
and popping in.
like, that's why I think like sorry to cut in, Jin, but like would highly recommend reading like Carl Jung and his theory of the archetypes and stuff. And especially he like went through a similar state where he was like talking to entities and stuff. And he had an entity called Philemon, which I believe is like a kind of biblical kind of reference that he talked to, and he was able to like ascertain like advice from him and like different things, talk to him about the past, the future, all these different things. And he actually wrote a book called the Red Book, which was like an accumulation of all the kind of stuff that he wrote during that period. Into like this almost like he created his own Bible essentially, talking about all his experience. I've got it in my cupboard and I'm too frightened to even look at it. But yeah, like honestly, I think he was definitely onto something in this kind of like he kind of broached on like myth and religion and like where it all stems from, and it's like almost like these foundations that already exist within the mind, and we're kind of able to, access it and
You had.
I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
I don't want to cut you off real quick, but you had something you wanted to add there, Jin?
I was gonna touch on when he was referring to dimensions and the relationship with like Hinduism is that they have a whole very very complicated layout of dimensionality theory, stuff like that. So they're like extremely complicated, but they'll try to categorize these dimensions as like, okay, here's these like 7 or 8 dimensions or something, and within those there's layers within those too, but they have a whole system for that. It's like very complicated, but
Yeah, they're
but
trying to
and
achieve the highest level of enlightenment, right?
right. So they would
Yeah.
compare like, okay, you would reside in these one, and in Tibetan Buddhism they would call these like bardos, and they talk extensively about bardos and how like we're in one of them right now, and all of the things of dreaming, that's one of them. When you die, you go to a different one, and they call these bardos. But the main thing is that you just have to think that in this given space, there's a lot of things occupying the same space, and even in this like reality that we're experiencing right now, there's physical things that occupy the same space and they don't really affect each other that much, and that would be like light and radio waves. They can occupy the same space at the same time, and so like we know that there's just because you have a point in space, it doesn't have to be occupied like by one single object, and that's essentially like the main concepts.
Well,
These layers.
that's one
Uh,
of the
so
that's one of the concepts, kind of the cores of like quantum physics and stuff, to where like I said, I'm not a scientist or anything, but I know that has a lot to do with the fact that some of the rules of quantum physics, or like how you observe particles, kind of lends to the idea of multidimensionality.
Well, so have you guys ever woken up and then the day that you had just didn't feel like it was normal reality? Like everything happened normally, but there would maybe something the way that the sun was reflecting off of things, or just the way that
Yeah.
your body felt, or just the environment. It just felt like it wasn't the normal reality. I have that all the time.
Yeah. So you'll walk outside or something like this isn't. You just say to yourself, "This
And
isn't real.
yeah, no,
It's
not that
not
it's
real."
not that like the trees look
Or it's
weird or
just not
anything
the
like
right
that.
one. No, I know. No, it's there's just something off. You can't
It's
put your
something
finger on it, but
off. Yeah, you
yeah,
can't
you
put your
know it's
finger on
yeah.
it.
I remember when I was young, I used to say that to myself. You go outside sometimes and you're like, "This isn't real."
It
And
usually happens to
it's
me like
weird.
when the seasons change.
Yeah.
Like when it starts to get cooler outside, for whatever reason, it's just those days they just feel fucking different.
Mm,
Mm.
it's interesting.
I've
Um,
always thought about that. Like, so yeah, I get what you're saying, and I know that the organization that Robert Monroe made, they talked a lot about. There's like frequencies that are given off by like the sun, and and also the earth,
right.
and changes in those frequencies could they have like this direct effect on the human your consciousness or your human mind. And I would think, maybe that contributes to something like that. If there's a significant change, it would be noticeable between 2 days. If there was a big change between 2 days, it probably would be noticeable, and you wouldn't really know how to know, or like how to articulate what is so different.
Right.
But you can kind of sense the difference.
Well, I think that's something that I'm really interested in as well, and I think it's no coincidence that like the kind of solar system's almost like this giant celestial clock that goes round and round and round at like a rate that extends far outside our kind of lifetimes and things like that. And
Yeah.
like what you said about the frequencies given off by different planets, like I've kind of like meditated to those frequencies and stuff like that before and had like really interesting experiences. And one thing that I came across was that the sun eventually its polarity flips. So like after I don't know however many thousands or millions of years or whatever, the polarity of the sun will flip. So I don't know what kind of like I always I think like this like in all kind of like ancient texts and stuff, like the sun and the moon are like intrinsically linked with like consciousness and unconsciousness. Like that's just like an association that we make. But like I don't know what kind of effects those are going to have like on us as human beings if the kind of polarity of the sun suddenly flips one day.
Well,
Like what kind of effect is that going to have on our consciousness? Is that like part of this whole kind of celestial mechanism? And we're just, I don't know.
it'll probably fuck everything as far as like the polarity of the Earth and the magnetic fields and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, so to be honest with you guys, it's almost we've been doing for about 2 hours now.
Yeah.
It's been a really fantastic show. Really appreciated having you on, Cosmic, as well as you, Jin.
Yeah.
I think
What
we
time
really
is
kinda,
it over there, Cosmic?
It's 4 a.m.
Oh,
4
man.
a.m. He's a fucking
4 a.m.
warrior. This guy's a
Yeah.
warrior.
We really,
Yeah.
really appreciate you, man.
You're the
But
fucking
thank
man,
God you don't
dude.
have to
Don't
work
ever let
tonight.
anybody tell you different.
Like I just got really into it actually, so like nah, it's been a
Good.
pleasure. Like really
Hey, you
enjoyed
know,
it.
I'm gonna be honest with you. That was my trick. I figured that if things went well and like and the conversation was good and the quality of your guests and everybody in the and people were really enjoying how things were going and we were going places that it like the time would fly. And to be honest, like I looked down earlier, it was like 9:40. I don't know, it was like 9 something. I was like, oh shit, we're not. There's no way we're gonna be. I'm gonna be honest. Like I think it was like 9:20, and I was like, oh no, I don't know if we're gonna have enough stuff to talk about with Cosmic to get us to stretch us to 9:45 when Jin comes in, and then this ended up being like just an amazing talk with you, and then Jin
Yeah.
came in and then it was an amazing talk with him. He's freaking. You guys are kind of on the same wavelength with the Monroe the Monroe stuff. I'm not more shit I have to look into now and research. But I mean, I'm be honest, man. I really this has been I've really enjoyed tonight. Like I didn't think I was gonna. Like I was not. I don't want to say I didn't think I was going to, but I thought it was gonna be one of those kind of just talk a little bit and oh this guy one time I whatever astral projected and had a wet dream. I didn't think it was gonna be good, but it was amazing. I think that kind of really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. I think shit. Like at some point, maybe Cosmic will have you back. I don't know, Jin as well. Maybe in the
Yeah.
future.
I would really like
Because
that.
I feel like we could take this to a whole nother level on so many different planes. So
We could and we could. I think we could. There's a lot more we can explore with both of these guys, especially with
Yeah.
well, not especially with, but I mean with both these guys, with the stories and with the experiences that Cosmic's had, especially and with the knowledge and kind of the classical sense of the input that we're getting from Jin here, from his more academic side, as well as some of his experiences and stuff like that. I think it's a Jin's a good balance. I think you guys are. This is a good balance here.
I've got to say, like, I've really enjoyed having Jin in, like, having his perspective and that kind of more clinical approach to it, and obviously his experience with, like, a lot of the Eastern philosophies and stuff has, like, that, like, I'm really interested in all that stuff as well, so it's good to have someone to bounce off in regards to that, and I'll definitely be talking to him more about that after the kind of show as well.
Hopefully.
And I
Yeah.
wanna. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
No, just feel free to communicate
quick?
within the Discord if you guys want
Yeah.
to talk,
Yeah.
hang out. whatever.
So
And-
Jen, real quick, do you have you got any final thoughts? And I'm gonna let Justin's gonna say some stuff, and then we'll probably close this up here.
No, I mean it was good. It was a good discussion. It was good talking to you guys. I'm perfectly fine with like continuing that in the future. I'll stay in the server, and you guys can contact me on Reddit. And yeah, I would be willing to continue that in the future. But it was a good discussion.
Fantastic.
All right, so
Justin?
I got a half serious, half joking question
Did we
for
have any
everybody here.
questions from chat tonight?
Hey, the questions that we had from chat were stuff that actually just naturally got answered. So my question for you guys is, do you find it weird that we have to act like we're sleeping to actually fall asleep?
Right. Can you rephrase that?
I think
Like,
I think my personal opinion on that question is that that's what we do. That's what anybody does with anything they do on the planet Earth. I don't care who you are, what job you
It
go
is
to.
kind
You
of- it's
act
kind of
like what
funny.
you're doing when you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether
Pat,
you're the
I'm
president
saying-
of the United States or
Yeah.
you're
I
a
get what you're saying.
therapist.
I get what you're saying. If I'm making an ice cream cone, I gotta act like I'm making an ice cream cone.
Hey man, you're gonna make that fucking
that
ice
is-
cream cone eventually. You know what I'm
Well, that is
saying?
weird though. Yeah, you gotta like you're like, oh, all right, go to sleep. All right, let me lay down and close my eyes.
Yeah,
It
is,
pretend
like, you are-
to
you
pretend
are
you're
kinda-
asleep.
Yeah, you are
Yeah.
kind of going through the motions. You know, it's different. It'd be like, oh, I'm gonna pretend to make an ice cream cone now. You know,
That's what I tell my kid. I'm like, all right, time to pretend we're going to bed, and it worked. You know, like just pretend you're sleeping, and you'll
Oh.
go.
And another thing, Brian, you said your kid is sleepwalking right now.
Yeah,
If you're not fucking placing him in weird predicaments halfway through his sleep so he wakes up somewhere else, you're doing it wrong.
it's cruel, dude. I feel bad for him, man. One time he woke up and he was like talking to the closet, like into the darkness. You know, I feel bad for him, so I try to.
What was he talking to? We might have to explore that, guys.
It was.
Yeah. We got our next guest.
I think it was like gibberish, or he was like mad. I forget, man. It was
Will
just
we bring
he
him
was.
on and we talk to him?
It wasn't like he
Starts
wasn't
talking
speaking
about the
in Latin or
fucking
something, was
Babadook
it?
or some shit.
It was. He was probably like in a dream state, yelling at his brother about not touching his toys or something like that. Like I don't know, man.
Or some fucking demon that squeezed him out of his bed and made him go talk to him in the closet.
So, is there any association with
thing.
astral projection and sleepwalking?
No.
I
No?
think that's like, I don't know if that's like body
You
projection.
know,
Sleepwalking is
Opposite.
more associated with like trauma and stuff.
I
Or
think if
weird
you're
stuff, yeah.
if you're sleepwalking, there has to be some level of like conscious activity in the physical body, even if the person might not recall, or it's not them directly. I'm not getting up out of my bed and
I
walking.
don't know, man. I just googled and it said if your kid sleepwalks and he's possessed. So rip.
No, but I would say projecting is like I've separated this. I've this consciousness I've separated from the physical body, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
The
If
alert
anything,
person
sleepwalking is more the opposite. It's more your just motor functions kind of just going on their own. Your rather than your higher functions going on their own without the motor functions.
I feel like if we start talking about this will be a whole nother hour.
Yeah, we
I
do.
really do. So,
All right, gentlemen.
It's interesting stuff.
It is. Like I said, let's think about, like, I'm not sure like what we've got. I think next week we've got some hippies on or something. We'll see.
However you want to go. We have a lot of hippies on all the time.
yeah. And we're looking at some other things. So,
Yeah, so we've got some interesting things coming up just for the podcast. I know we have, like I said, the hippies talking about DMT. It's a joke, obviously. We may get into that. I think we're going to get into that maybe next week. I don't know. I don't want to say for sure. I've got we're going to be having a special guest coming up pretty soon. I got a couple of special guests lined up for the next couple of weeks when they're available. One of them's just a Florida native that I know has a lot of interesting stories.
we have Florida Man. Florida Man's going to be on our show.
Pretty much. And then we have former.
These guys
comedian.
don't care about Florida at all.
Yeah, they do.
No.
We have a former
Fans
professional
probably like Jin's in the U.S., so he's like, fuck Florida.
Yeah, fuck Florida.
A former professional comedian, podcast host, radio personality who'll be on in the future.
That'd be cool.
So
nice
he'll be coming
light
on
touch.
and tell us his stories, some light touches, some slice of life.
Uh-oh.
So, anyways, all right. So, I don't know if we have anything else to really cap this off. I'm
No,
pretty
I
much
don't.
done. I've shot my wad for the night.
Think for
You guys-
yourself. Question authority.
Think for yourself. Question authority. Think for yourself.
Always.
See something, say something. Just not to anybody. Say it to us.
Don't
You got
like
anything
the
else for us,
meatloaf.
Cosmic?
Oh no, you put me on the spot now.
Yeah.
no. Well, I'm gonna hopefully not astral project tonight, and I'm just gonna
Probably
fall into a
overtired.
very deep sleep.
We appreciate you. Why don't you
Yeah,
get
man.
with?
Aye, thanks for having me.
Why don't you reach out to Brian? Why don't we try to stay in touch here, Cosmic, and we'll have
Yeah,
you back.
you can always contact me on Reddit or on here or whatever. Just give
For
me
sure.
a shout.
We'll poke at you for another late night coming here in a month or so.
Sure, sounds good.
All right,
Hi,
man.
Cosmic.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Alright.
man.
All right.
Bye.